Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Nexarian Empire stood motionless on the command deck of the Stellar Dominance, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with barely contained amusement. The holographic display before him showed 3 approaching human vessels, their designs unlike anything the Empire had encountered in its millennia of conquest. The largest human ship, barely reaching 1 kilometer in length, appeared almost primitive compared to his 7-kilometer flagship. Its hull bore strange patterns that seemed to absorb rather than reflect sensor scans, a peculiarity that his chief science officer had dismissed as primitive electromagnetic shielding. Magnification factor 10. Vexthor commanded, his secondary neural clusters triggering the ship's systems. The display zoomed in on the lead vessel, designated as UES Hyperion. Its design defied conventional military doctrine. Smooth, almost organic curves instead of the angular, aggressive geometry favored by the Empire. Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Hyperion maintained perfect composure as her ship approached the massive alien vessel. "Status report," she requested, her voice steady despite the tension permeating the bridge. "Their flagship's mass exceeds our entire fleet combined by a factor of 12. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. "Energy signatures are unusual, Captain. Their power generation systems operate on principles we haven't encountered before." Chen nodded slightly, studying the tactical display. The Nexarian vessel's weapon systems were impressive but predictable. Standard plasma projectors scaled up to match their enormous ships. Their targeting systems, while powerful, seemed designed for engaging large capital ships rather than smaller, agile vessels. The communication system activated with a burst of neural-compatible frequencies. "Human vessel Hyperion," resonated a voice that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. "You will maintain your current trajectory and prepare for inspection. Resistance is unnecessary." "Acknowledged, Stellar Dominance," Chen replied smoothly. "We look forward to establishing diplomatic relations." She gestured to her helmsman, who guided their ship along the designated approach vector. The diplomatic reception chamber aboard the Stellar Dominance reflected the Nexarians' love of overwhelming scale. The ceiling soared 50 meters overhead, and holographic displays showed real-time views of conquered worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Supreme Commander Vexthor's towering form, nearly 5 meters tall, dominated the chamber. His crystalline exoskeleton shifted through patterns of deep purple and gold, a display of what passed for diplomatic courtesy among his kind. "I must admit," he resonated, addressing his officers more than the human delegation, "when we detected your civilization's quantum emissions, we expected more." Captain Chen stood her ground, though she noticed her military attaché, Commander Santos, tensing slightly. The chamber hummed with subsonic frequencies designed to unsettle carbon-based life forms, a crude attempt at psychological warfare that their briefings had prepared them for. "Your ships," Vexthor continued, his neural patterns flickering with what humans had learned to recognize as condescension. "They're fascinating in their simplicity. Tell me, Captain Chen, do they serve any purpose beyond basic transportation?" "Every tool has its purpose, Supreme Commander," Chen replied, her slight smile never wavering. "We find our vessels serve ours quite adequately. And what purpose would that be? Surely not warfare." Vexthor's exoskeleton rippled with patterns of deep purple. "Your entire fleet would fit within one of our secondary hangars. Size isn't everything, Supreme Commander," Chen said, her voice carrying clearly despite its measured tone. "Humanity has learned many lessons about assumptions throughout our history." Vexthor's patterns flashed crimson briefly, a warning display. "What lessons could your species possibly teach the Nexarian Empire? We have conquered 12,000 star systems. Our smallest destroyer could obliterate your entire fleet." Chen's smile remained unchanged, but something in her eyes caused one of Vexthor's junior officers to step back involuntarily. "That's an interesting theory, Supreme Commander. Let's hope we never have to test it." The negotiations lasted exactly 3 hours before they collapsed completely. As Captain Chen's shuttle departed the stellar dominance, she transmitted a single coded burst to Earth Command. Protocol Prometheus is in effect. They're exactly what we expected. Recommend immediate implementation of Operation Ghostlight. In his command chamber, Supreme Commander Vexthor reviewed the sensor data from the human vessels, his neural patterns cycling through shades of irritation. Something about their ships bothered him. Their design was too elegant, too precise. It was almost as if, Supreme Commander, his tactical officer's neural patterns flared with alarm. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. They're different from their approach vectors. Vexthor's patterns stiffened. Different how? The readings, they don't match anything in our database. And they're growing stronger. The first shots of the war would be fired within the hour. The Nexarian Empire was about to learn why humanity had designed their ships the way they did, and why making assumptions about an enemy's capabilities was the last mistake any military power should make. As the massive Nexarian warship brought its weapons online, Captain Chen stood calmly on the bridge of the Hyperion. All ships, she transmitted on the encrypted quantum channel. Execute Operation Ghostlight. Show them what humanity's been hiding all these years. The war for survival was about to begin, and the Nexarian Empire would learn that sometimes the smallest vessels carried the deadliest of prizes. Supreme Commander Vexthor watched in disbelief as the human vessels simply vanished from his sensors. One moment, the three ships had been there, their energy signatures clear and predictable. The next, nothing. Impossible. His tactical officer's neural patterns flared with confusion. No cloaking technology can mask quantum signatures completely. They must have jumped to FTL. No, Vexthor's patterns darkened. They're still here. Years of combat experience told him something was wrong. Very wrong. The first indication came from the destroyer Relentless Fury on the edge of their formation. Its shields flared brilliant purple, then collapsed completely. No weapon signature. No energy beam. No projectile detected. Status report, Vexthor demanded. The Relentless Fury reports complete shield failure, his tactical officer responded. Their systems are. They're being rewritten somehow. Something is inside their quantum processors. Before Vexthor could process this information, two more destroyers reported similar failures. Their mighty shields, capable of withstanding direct hits from plasma cannons, were being bypassed completely. Aboard the Hyperion, Captain Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete, she reported. All ships confirm successful quantum infiltration. The true nature of humanity's ships was finally revealing itself. What the Nexarians had dismissed as primitive design choices were actually housing for technologies they couldn't even comprehend. The smooth, organic curves weren't aesthetic choices. They were quantum waveguides, focusing and channeling energies that existed between normal spacetime. Execute Phase 2, Chen ordered. Across her small fleet, quantum processors that had been running at less than 1% capacity suddenly surged to full power. The primitive hulls began to glow with a soft blue light as they phased partially out of normal spacetime. Lieutenant Rodriguez's hands flew across his console. Quantum entanglement networks established, beginning systematic disruption of their targeting systems. The Nexarian fleet's mighty weapons were suddenly firing at shadows, their targeting computers unable to distinguish real ships from quantum echoes. Each human vessel appeared to be in dozens of places simultaneously, while actually being nowhere at all. Supreme Commander, the tactical officer's patterns were now strobing with alarm. We're detecting quantum intrusion attempts across all systems. They're ships. They're not just vessels. They're quantum computational arrays. Vexthor's massive form stiffened as understanding finally dawned. The humans hadn't built warships at all. They'd built quantum computers disguised as ships, each one more powerful than the combined processing power of his entire fleet. All vessels, emergency protocols, he commanded. Shut down all quantum-based systems. Revert to analog control. But it was too late. The quantum infiltration had already taken root in their systems. Across his fleet, ships began reporting critical failures. Weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Navigation systems went dark. "Now," Chen ordered, "show them our actual weapons." The human ships phased back into normal space, but they were different now. Their hulls had reconfigured, revealing weapon ports that hadn't existed before. Strange, organic-looking projectors emerged, glowing with energies that defied the Nexarian sensors. "Target their command and control systems only," Chen instructed. "Minimal casualties. Maximum impact." The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a systematic dismantling of the most powerful fleet in known space. The human ships danced through the Nexarian formation, their quantum phase drives allowing them to literally skip between moments of time. Each shot from their weapons didn't damage the Nexarian ships. It rewrote their fundamental structure at the quantum level. Weapons became inert. Power systems reset themselves to minimum output. Computer systems rewrote their own programming. Within 15 minutes, the mighty Nexarian fleet hung motionless in space, their systems locked in safe mode, their weapons transformed into simple matter by quantum manipulation. "Supreme Commander," Chen's voice came through on all frequencies. "I believe it's time we had another discussion about diplomatic relations. This time, perhaps, with a better understanding of each other's capabilities." Vexthor stood silent on his powerless bridge, his neural patterns cycling through colors never before seen in Nexarian emotional displays. In a single engagement, everything he thought he knew about warfare, about technology, about humanity's place in the galaxy, had been completely rewritten. The humans hadn't just outfought them. They'd operated on a level of warfare that the Nexarians hadn't even known existed. Their ships weren't just vessels. They were weapons that fought in dimensions beyond normal spacetime. As Captain Chen's diplomatic shuttle once again approached the stellar dominance, she allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes, the best way to prevent a war was to show your potential enemy exactly why starting one would be their biggest mistake. The Nexarian High Command facility on Centaurid Prime buzzed with agitation as reports flooded in from across their territory. More ships had gone dark, their quantum cores mysteriously rewritten. Supreme Commander Vexthor faced the assembled War Council, his neural patterns subdued. "How did we miss this?" demanded High Commissioner Zelra, her crystalline form pulsing angry red. "Our intelligence network is the finest in known space." "Because," came a voice from the shadows, "your network was compromised before you even knew we existed." The assembled Nexarian leaders turned as one. A human woman stepped into the light. Dr. Elizabeth Nash, their trusted quantum physics advisor of the past 3 years. Except she wasn't Nexarian at all. "Impossible," Zelra whispered. "Our genetic scanners detected exactly what we wanted them to detect," Nash replied. "Quantum-level biological reconfiguration. We've been studying you for decades while you thought you were studying us." Across Nexarian space, similar revelations were occurring. Trusted advisors, technical specialists, even maintenance workers were revealing themselves as human agents. Each had been hiding in plain sight, their bodies altered at the quantum level to fool even the most sophisticated scans. On the Hyperion, Captain Chen received the reports with satisfaction. "Phase 3 is complete," she informed Earth Command. "The network is exposed." The true extent of human technological advancement was becoming clear to the stunned Nexarians. They hadn't just mastered quantum computing. They'd learned to manipulate reality at its most fundamental level. "Your entire strategic assessment of humanity was based on data we fed you," Nash continued, addressing the War Council. "Every scan, every analysis, every technological benchmark, all carefully crafted to lead you to the wrong conclusions." Vexthor's patterns shifted to deep blue, recognition, and perhaps a touch of respect. "The primitive designs of your ships were housings for technologies you couldn't detect because you didn't know what to look for," Nash finished. "Our quantum phase drives don't just move through space. They move through probability itself. The War Council Chamber's quantum security systems suddenly activated, but instead of targeting Nash, they turned inward, creating an impenetrable barrier around the Nexarian leaders. What you're experiencing now is a quantum isolation field, Nash explained. Your atoms still exist in normal space, but your ability to interact with the quantum fabric of reality has been restricted. Across Nexarian space, similar fields were activating, containing their military leadership without bloodshed. Ships, bases, and entire defense networks found themselves operating in a limited slice of reality, unable to access their full capabilities. We could have done this at any time, Nash said softly. But we wanted to give diplomacy a chance. We wanted to show you what we could do, so you'd understand why peace is the only logical choice. The quantum isolation fields were displaying data now, the true history of human technological development, how they discovered quantum manipulation not through warfare, but through the need to heal their damaged planet, how they developed their phase drive technology not for military advantage, but for peaceful exploration. Your empire is built on the assumption that technological superiority equals the right to rule, Nash continued. We're showing you a different path, one where technology serves understanding, not dominance. The assembled Nexarian leaders watched in silence as their fundamental understanding of the galaxy's power structure crumbled. Humanity hadn't just outmaneuvered them. They'd been operating on a completely different level of existence. The choice is yours, Nash concluded. Continue this war, and we'll be forced to demonstrate capabilities that make today's revelations look primitive, or accept that the galaxy is large enough for both our species to thrive, and learn what we could accomplish together. As the quantum data streams continued to flow, Supreme Commander Vexthor's neural patterns shifted to a color no human had seen before. The Nexarian expression of profound paradigm shift. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. The question was no longer about military victory, but about whether his species could adapt to a universe far more complex than they'd imagined. The Nexarian resistance fleet emerged from quantum space above Earth, led by Admiral Kexnor, Vexthor's protege. 5,000 ships strong, they represented every vessel that had rejected the peace negotiations. Their quantum drives hummed with power drawn from a dozen artificial suns. So this is their homeworld. Kexnor's neural patterns pulsed with anticipation, barely defended. They'd grown overconfident. Earth's orbital space appeared nearly empty. Only 3 stations hung in high orbit, their designs as elegant and understated as human ships. No defense fleet, no weapon platforms, nothing that suggested humanity's supposed technological superiority. All ships, battle formation, Kexnor commanded. Show these humans what real warfare looks like. The Nexarian fleet arranged itself into attack formation, their massive ships forming a 3-dimensional spear aimed at Earth's heart. Their weapons powered up, drawing enough energy to crack a planet. Then Earth's atmosphere changed color. The entire planet's atmosphere shifted to a deep, iridescent blue. The 3 orbital stations pulsed once, and reality itself seemed to ripple. Energy spike. Kexnor's tactical officer screamed. The planet. It's all one quantum matrix. Humanity's greatest secret revealed itself. Earth wasn't just their homeworld. It was their masterpiece. The entire planet had been transformed into a quantum computer of unimaginable power. Every molecule of its atmosphere had been engineered into a computational matrix. Captain Chen's voice echoed across all frequencies. Last chance. Admiral. Stand down. Kexnor's response was to fire. 5,000 ships unleashed their full power at Earth. The combined energy could have shattered a dozen worlds. The attack simply ceased to exist halfway to their target, their energy converted to harmless light by Earth's quantum atmosphere. Then humanity showed their hand. The atmosphere itself reached out, tendrils of quantum-engineered air extending into space. Each tendril split into thousands, then millions of smaller strands, each seeking out a Nexarian ship. Impossible, Kexnor whispered as the tendrils touched his fleet. Where they made contact, ships simply transformed. Matter rearranged itself at the quantum level. Weapon systems became gardens. Power cores transformed into terrariums. Across his fleet, instruments of war were becoming monuments to peace. The 3 orbital stations pulsed again, and space itself seemed to fold. Thousands of human ships emerged from quantum space, each one small, elegant, and carrying power that defied comprehension. "We gave you a choice." Chen's voice was tinged with sadness. "Now watch what Earth can really do." The quantum atmosphere expanded, enveloping the entire Nexarian fleet. Ships didn't explode or break apart. They simply changed. Quantum manipulation on a scale that made their previous demonstrations look like children's toys. When it was over, Kexnor stood on his bridge, neural patterns cycling through colors of awe and fear. His mighty warship had become a floating garden, a self-sustaining ecosystem that could support life indefinitely. Every weapon, every piece of military hardware had been transformed into something that created rather than destroyed. "Your fleet is neutralized," Chen announced. "But your people are safe. Each ship has been converted into an ark, capable of sustaining its crew indefinitely. You can return home to spread war, or stay and learn why we chose a different path." As Kexnor watched Earth's quantum atmosphere ripple with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space, he understood. Humanity hadn't just surpassed the Nexarians technologically. They'd evolved beyond the very concept of warfare as his people understood it. The war ended not with destruction, but with transformation. And in that moment, watching his mighty fleet become a garden in space, Kexnor realized that true power wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to create instead. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, Supreme Commander Vexthor stood in the transformed gardens of what had once been the Nexarian High Command. The crystalline spires now housed vast quantum computation arrays, their purpose not warfare but understanding the fabric of reality itself. Dr. Nash approached, her quantum-modified form shifting slightly in the artificial sunlight. "The first joint research facility is ready," she said. "Your scientists are already making breakthroughs we hadn't considered." The true purpose of humanity's technological advancement had finally become clear. They hadn't developed quantum manipulation for war or dominance. They'd developed it because they'd seen something coming, something that threatened all life in the galaxy. "Show me," Vexthor commanded softly. The quantum display activated, showing a void between galaxies. Something moved there, vast and dark, consuming quantum probability itself. The Great Entropy, humanity had named it. A cosmic force that didn't just destroy matter and energy, but erased the very possibility of existence. "This is why," Nash explained. "Why we needed you to understand. Why we couldn't allow the galaxy's most advanced civilizations to waste resources fighting each other. The real war is coming, and we need to face it united." Across former Nexarian space, transformed warships now served as research vessels and quantum probability observatories. The mighty empire that had once conquered through force now led the galaxy in scientific discovery. Captain Chen, now Fleet Admiral, appeared via quantum projection. "The first probability barriers are holding. The combined computing power of Earth and the transformed Nexarian fleet has given us a fighting chance." The Great Entropy had already consumed 3 distant galaxies. But here, in this corner of the universe, life had chosen to stand together. Humanity's quantum manipulation technology, combined with Nexarian engineering and the unified resources of 100 other species, was creating something new, a quantum shield around their entire galaxy. "We could never have built this alone," Nash said. "Your people's understanding of large-scale engineering was the key we needed. Together, we're not just preserving life, we're rewriting the fundamental laws of reality itself." Vexthor's neural patterns shifted to a new color, one that represented not conquest or submission, but partnership. "Perhaps," he said, "this is what true power looks like. Not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when to create instead." In orbit above them, The transformed Nexarian fleet pulsed with quantum energy, each ship now a node in a vast computational network that spanned the galaxy. They weren't just defending against the great entropy. They were changing the very nature of space-time, creating a new kind of universe where such threats couldn't exist. The barrier will be complete within a year, Chen reported. After that, we can begin expanding it to protect neighboring galaxies. Our civilizations will survive not because we were stronger or more advanced, but because we learned to work together. As Vexthor watched the quantum barriers ripple across space, he understood finally why the humans had acted as they did. They hadn't sought to defeat the Nexarians. They'd sought to elevate them, to show them a greater purpose than conquest. The war that had begun with mockery and dismissal had ended not just in peace, but in transcendence. Together, they weren't just saving civilization. They were redefining what civilization could become. And in the vast darkness between the galaxies, the great entropy encountered something it had never faced before: hope, given form through the combined will of species that had learned to reach beyond their differences and touch the true nature of reality itself.